Hi there, welcome to our channel. I'm Vic.
I'm Nick.
And we're NV Board Gaming. And today we're looking at Clash of Cultures. This is Monumental Edition. It's designed by Christian Markison and published by WizKids. This is for 2 to 4 players. Nick is going to go through how you play, and then we're going to give our reviews.
Hey everyone, welcome to the table. We are set up for a 2-player game of Clash of Cultures, and this is the Monumental Edition, which means all the expansions are in the game, and it's the newest edition. So, to set up, this is just going to be a brief overview here. So we're going to give you a little gist of what's going on in the game. Not going to be a comprehensive rules teach or anything like that. So look elsewhere if you want the full rules teach. But we start with 2 food here. Our resources are tracked here on this top board. We also start with mining and farming right here. Okay? And we have 3 cubes to show that if we advance anywhere, we're going to lose cubes from here. And then an event will trigger when we lose those 3 cubes. And then we refill. So the game, we have a little round checker. I'm going to put this off to the side just so you can see how it's set up here for a 2-player game. This will be variable based on the player count. And also the starting tiles. This is a generic starting tile that my opponent has. However, I am a clan that has a different starting tile. So I am this one. So if I flip this over, it'll show that they start with a different, a special little starting tile. And you always start out in the first position here in the plains. Right there. Whereas this one is a basic that has a barren piece of land, forest, plains, and mountain. All right. So since we're playing with the expansion here with the leaders, you're going to get your 3 leader cards for the culture that you are. And we'll explain more about that soon. Okay. We also start the game with 1 action card, 1 objective. I'm going to bring the round tracker right here. This is a standard round tracker. There is another side for a variable game end where you could roll dice at these phases to see if by chance the game ends after that round. So we'll just say we're here in round 1 in era 1. Okay, we start with a settler right here. We start with a happy city as well. All right, let's go over some actions in the game and get you a little feel. The game is going to end when either we get to the final right here, this phase, round 3 in era 6, or it'll end if somebody has been wiped off the map. Okay. Now let's get to some actions here. So we could, and we have a little cheat sheet. That'll help, just having this out, and we'll run it by each one. We could advance. So since we start with 2 food, we can either spend 2 food or ideas or gold. Gold is considered wild. Ideas are only wild for the advance movement, this action. We could advance, so we're advancing civilization. So let's show how that works. I'll bring that right back to the board. So our food was here. It's going to go down to 0. I'm just going to take that off the board for now. And we do already have mining, but since those boards, like every time I pick it up, those cubes will drop because there's no back. I just know that I have these 2 already unlocked. I can just go ahead and do it. Okay, so every time I play, I'm going to have those 2 unlocked. So I have choices. I can either, when I do an advance action, I will remove one of the cubes here, and I will put it on anything at the top of these columns. So maritime, education, warfare, and so on. I would have to go to the top of these. However, I could go to any in this row because I already have the top one unlocked. So that is a prerequisite. If you want to do maritime, you have to start by fishing. You can't just jump down to cartography. So that is a rule that you need to know. Now, when you do that and you spend your 2 food, let's say I did fishing. It's saying that since this has a yellow border, I'm going to get a happiness token that I will just keep in my supply. And I'll explain what I can do with that later. But right now, it's just in my supply. If I were to do a writing action, if I were to advance into writing, it's saying, since it says blue order, I get a culture token. Again, right to my supply. Some have no border. That just means I don't get anything with those. Okay. So if I did fishing, I spend my 2 food, I did fishing, so that is an advance. Now, for the rest of the game, I have access to building ports. That's what that's saying on my board. I can bring that a little closer. So all these little tokens are not going to be there. So I have access to ports, and you can see that right there. If it were just a straight dark rectangle with white text, that is actually a prerequisite. It doesn't give me draft here at nationalism. That means I have to have draft, and there's an arrow here to signify where that is applicable, where I need to have something before I can do this. I got to have philosophy before I can start voting, so on. So this is saying I have access to building ports. And my cities may now collect food from one city's sea space. Not a bad deal, because over here, I can now collect food here. I can technically collect 2 food because I'm in a plane that collects food, and I'm next to a sea space. If I have fishing, this can also collect food. Otherwise, this collects nothing. If I don't have fishing, it won't give me anything. Okay? So that is advance. I went ahead, I did fishing, I advanced fishing. I got a happiness token for that because it was yellow, and now I have the ability where I can collect food from my sea space that I'm adjacent to. That is the first action on their cheat sheet. So let's go down to the next one. We can remove a settler from a non-barren space. And then we found a city. So let's show what that looks like. First of all, we already found a city. We already have a city where this settler is. So we're going to want to move. To move, now let's get these out of here. These were from the board. To move, I could move here, 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 or here. You can't move into the sea because you don't have any ports or ships or anything like that. You don't have that kind of stuff, that maritime stuff yet. So let's say we want to go here. Okay, we'll reveal that. There are rules for water. So since there's no water attached, this has to go to the outside. So we're going to flip it. Now I'm here. Okay, I should mention, this is critical, you get 3 actions per turn. And then it passes to the next player. The key concept right there that I mentioned. 3 actions per turn. So my one action could be what I showed, the advance. Now I have fishing. Then my second action could be move. Okay, so I'm here. And my third action could be found a city. So I have a settler in a spot. I could, as an action, found a city. I remove the settler and I put down one of these city settlements. And that is finding a city. Now I have a city with a 1 value and another city with a 1 value. However, this one starts out happy, so it produces +1. So I technically, if I'm going to produce, I'd prefer to produce here. All right, so let's go to the next. Activate city. So let's say so now it's my opponent's turn. They do their 3 actions, and then we move. Once they're done with their 3 actions, we're going to go and move this down to round 2 of arrow 1. And now it's back to me, and I have 3 actions. So let's look at some other actions we can do. We can activate a city. And there's 3 things that you can pick from if you activate a city. You can recruit units. The cost is also on the same cheat sheet. So I could recruit a settler for 2 food. I can recruit infantry, perhaps, with a food and an ore. So that's one thing I can do. I could collect resources. We'll explain how those work. Or I can construct a building. Assuming I have the prerequisite that's shown in these rectangles with white text, I can do that. So right now, the only thing I can build is a ship. So that would cost 2 lumber. Well, how do I get lumber? How do I get ore for infantry? Let's go. So let's instead collect resources. You can collect as many resources as the size of your city. Your city is the size of the settlement plus any buildings you have in that city. So right now, we have a 1 city. 2 1 cities, okay? So the fact that I have 2 1 cities means I can grow a city up to 2. If I had 3 cities on the board, I can grow a city up to 3. However, in this case, I couldn't put, let's say at this beginning of the game, I couldn't just do a build action because I have a 1 city. That means I would have a city of 2, but I would only have 1 city, which breaks that rule. You have to have as many cities as you want to build a city up to. So in this case, I could build a city. I have 2 cities, so I can build one of these cities up to 2. Okay? So let's go ahead and let's say we're going to collect resources because I want whatever it might be. I want ore. or lumber. Let's say I want lumber, okay? I'm going to activate this city, which is a 1, but it gets a bonus +1 because it's happy. So it will produce me twice. So I'm going to say I want a food and a wood. I don't have a port yet, so I don't have access to this, and I don't want ore just yet. I could not go to this one. It's already occupied. So I'm going to go ahead and get food and wood, and I will just move those trackers up on my board. That's my first action. Now, let's say, you know what? I really want 2 wood. Because I don't have access to 2 wood with 1 production, I'm going to produce here. I don't really want to produce here because they lose their happiness. If I make them produce again in the same round, that's not good for me. So I'm going to use it here. This one only has a 1 production. It is not happy or sad. It is just neutral city. I want that wood. So now I have 2 wood if I do a production. So that's 2 actions I just did. I did 2 production actions. With my third action, I could spend both of the wood, because remember, that's what the cost was for that port. So if I want, I could do a construct building. So you've seen collect resources. You pretty much know, I have already explained that you're going to spend those resources to put infantry or settlers out. So let's say I want to construct a building. I'm going to spend 2 wood, and it's going to give me these abilities, and I'll put a port out on it, one of my cities. So let's do that. Grab the port token. Let's see, there's one. Right there on this city, adjacent to the water, perfect. I spend my 2 wood, I build the port, and that's 3 actions. It goes again. Rinse and repeat. It's the other player's turn. They're going to do their 3 actions. It passes to me. We're in round 3 of Arrow 1. All right, let's look at some other actions. Kind of explain to move, but not really. You can move, we'll explain right now. We can move up to 3 different units or groups of units. 1 space. Unless you have some ability that I don't know about. So if I had some people out here, I could say, you know what? They're going to go here. They're going to go here. We reveal it and whatnot. So that's just movement. Pretty simple. When you go to a tile, you reveal it. And again, I mentioned already that you orientate. If you have water it can attach to, it will go that way. Otherwise, it will go to the outside of the board. And if nothing's applicable, if it was all land, you can decide which way you want to orientate it. You got 2 choices. So if I went here, yeah, it'd be my choice. If I want this, whatever have you. Okay? That's movement. Next one, increase happiness. That's when I said I would explain how to use these. So for my action, I could simply say, I'm going to increase happiness and just drop it here. That's pretty boring. But let's say it was angry. And I want to do an increase happiness action. And let's say I have 3 of these. I will spend 2 to increase happiness, because you can spend as many as you have, as long as it's useful. I could make this into a happy city. So first I spend 1 to make this neutral. Then I spend another to make it happy. And that is all just 1 action that I just did. So I can spend as many as I want for 1 action. That's increased happiness. Last action that I didn't mention is influence culture. You can spend culture rolls to boost range or to inflict more damage, or to get a better success rate. What you're trying to do here is, let's say later in the game, hypothetical, obviously this is impossible, but we're going to say that this is how it looks. And I managed to bring over a couple troops that were here. I move, let's say, I'm not going to do the troops yet. I want to do combat. That's why I'm putting those out. I want to do combat eventually, but let's just say I have a city here and a couple troops. And they have, let's say they have a market. They have a market built here. Okay, so now we can do that. I have a city, and it doesn't matter that I have these troops. I have them out here because I want to show a combat a little bit before I wrap it up. My city wants to influence their market. So they're going to try to influence a building. No matter what this building was, they're going to try to influence it. So I'm going to roll a die. On a 5 or a 6, I am successful. I also have a range. However big the city is what my range is. So it's a range of 1 right now, so they have to be adjacent to me. If it were a range of 3, I could get all the way over here and spend, to increase anything I want, I can spend culture tokens to increase it if it was a 4 and I had a 3. In this case, if they were over here, I would have to spend a culture to reach over here in order for me to try to influence this. As it is, I don't have to spend any. So if I roll and say, I am going to try to influence this market, I would roll. I have a 3. Now I can spend culture, I can spend 2 culture to make that a 5 and have a success. What would happen is this would go away and I would put it in my own color, but the city would still remain theirs. Okay? That's influencing with culture. As it is, if I didn't have the culture, I failed that. So I wasted my action. If I succeeded, I could not then do it again for, let's say, if they had another building here. Okay? I wouldn't be able to do that again this round. I can't just keep doing it and keep taking their stuff. Once per round, you can get 1 success, perhaps. Otherwise, it's a wasted action. If you did not succeed, you just wasted your action. That's all. All right, that's that. So let's do combat. Last thing here. Well, not last thing, but I'll go over some other smaller things as well, but let's do combat. So on my movement action, if I moved 2 units, 1 space, we have a combat here. Being generic, let's just say it's a 2v2. We're going to roll, each of us roll 2 dice. Now this might not be the case because we're going to play some cards, but that's how it's going to work. In general, 2v2, 2 dice. Okay, they're the same, they're infantry. However, there are steps in combat. You're going to be able to play action cards. So we're going to simultaneously reveal if we have any action cards we want to play to either boost or do something good for us on our combat. And maybe it'll say add a combat die or add +1, whatever, regardless of what it is. So in this case, I just took a random one. After removing casualties, if you eliminated at least as many units as your opponent, roll a die. On a 5 or a 6, eliminate 1 more unit. This hit cannot be canceled. So you can play it for these tactics. We have these action cards. We got one at the beginning of the game along with an objective. So you can play these if you so desire right before combat. But the gist of combat is that we're going to roll dice and see what happens. Some of them have boons. So you see this cavalry gets a boon here. Leaders get a boon. So they all have different symbols. Elephants get a boon if you had an elephant out there. That would help if you roll that, and so on. But you're going to roll simultaneously. And the gist is, so I rolled a 6 and a 4. That's awesome because regardless of anything else, I have a 10. So what you do with your total is you divide by 5. So in this case, I have 2 hits. These 2 are both dead because I rolled a 10 divided by 5 is 2. That's enough to kill 2 troops. Perfect roll. If I am the only one left, let's say they rolled a 1 and a 2. Perfect. This is now mine because they have no defense here. So I just traded their city. I ended my turn with being on their city, so now it's my city. There are rewards for getting cities as well. There are also rewards because there's barbarians that come out. We'll go over events here in a sec that you can get rewards for clearing out barbarians and stuff like that. So let's do that. Let's go over some other stuff. Objectives. Here, you have stuff on the top, stuff on the bottom. If you just did something here or here, you can do that in it'll say what phase. It'll say sometimes immediately, or it'll say status phase, which we're going to get into here shortly. So at status phase, if this condition is met, I will just put this face up in my area because I know I'm going to get 2 points for that at the beginning of the game. So those are objectives. Every objective is 2 points. And you're going to get those during status phases. We just went over actions. We also have wonders that you could complete. There's a deck of these. They have nice minis right here. Look really good. You can build those out. Different stuff that you can unlock on your advances will give you chances to get wonders. It'll show a prerequisite. You need irrigation to build the great gardens, and it'll say what resources you spend. And it says what kind of ability or anything else that it might do for you. All wonders are 4 points, unless stated otherwise. I believe they're all 4. Oh, there's a 5. Great pyramids are 5. There you go. So it'll say that and what culture is needed. And then you can put those in any of your cities that are happy. Generally, that's to be happy. A happy city. To put a great wonder. All right. So, you'll notice we've mentioned status phase. Between every era, there's a status phase. So we're going to resolve a few things in order. Whenever we get to the status phase of any of these once we're done with 3 rounds in any of these arrows. We're first going to go ahead and decide, have you completed any objectives? So you're going to look at your objectives. If you have, this is the time. Anything that says status phase, you're going to resolve. I have all 4 advances in one of my government categories. Boom, I'll just show my opponents and click this off to my side for 2 points in the game. Next, we're gonna receive a free advancement. So we're gonna go ahead and put a cube down on any of these that we want to advance. And you already know the rules of what we can do. Top row, or if you already have top row, you can put something in that column, whichever one you want, to try to advance all these areas. Free advance. So you're going to choose one of those. This might trigger an event because remember you have a supply of 3 up here, so you might get an event if you run out of those 3, which we'll get into shortly. And after that, we're going to draw 1 more action card and 1 more objective for our hand, things to aim for. Then you're going to decide, in general you're not going to do this, but sometimes you might want to, if something's getting in your way or if it's just a helpless cause, you can raise a city. So if I didn't want this city anymore, I can raise it for 1 gold, which means remove it and get a gold. You can change your government type, is the next thing you can do. You can pay a culture or a happiness token to change your government. There are 3 governments, democracy, autocracy, and theocracy. Theocracy? Theocracy, I don't know if I can say that. And then after that, we're going to determine first player. So whoever has the highest total culture and happiness tokens is going to be the first player. If it's a tie, the player that is first player can decide if they want to be the first player or not. On this rule sheet, I got a different explanation. I just realized that. Current first player or next player to the left wins ties. The rules that I was reading before, it was the winner, whoever was the previous first player, would decide if there was a tie, if they want to be first or not. So I'm not sure what the real rules are, but the cheat sheet says winner to the left decide, the person to the left decides. All right, last thing I want to go over. I'll say before the last thing. In the expansion, you have these special ones for your leaders or for your clan or your culture. Anytime you unlock that, you're going to go ahead and put 1 of your cubes on it. So this one will give you the War Beast ability, which means you can recruit elephants a little differently. So if I did husbandry. So all these different ones have something special. Okay. Now, events. When you run out of those 3 cubes in your top right of your board, you're going to get an event. You're going to look here. It's going to say what this does right away before we resolve any text. Barbarians move. I don't want to get too much into it, but essentially we don't have a barbarians out here. We're going to spawn a settlement and a barbarian on the board, and then they are going to move. So they're going to try to, they're like essentially another enemy, but they're a neutral player. For these rolls, your opponent just does the rolls for barbarians when they attack. You can also attack them if it comes up later in the game. And then after that all happens, which I don't want to get into every thing that's going to happen with these, we are going to resolve this. So you must both do this, that, and that's it. That's your event. There'll be all kinds of these cards here that can be pretty simple, like gain food, or they can be a little more going on with like pirates attack from the sea, or raid from the sea, or there can be things that don't affect you they don't affect you if you have irrigation, or don't affect you if you have sanitation or whatever. So there's a lot of reasons to unlock those. So you're going to go ahead and resolve events. That is the gist of the game. There's so many rules that we could go into more in depth, but just to give you a feel of the type of actions you're doing, I think we'll cut it here. And Vic and I will go back up top and tell you what we think of Clash of Cultures.
All right. Thank you, Nick, for the great overview of how you play Clash of Cultures. So we can just get started with initial thoughts, impressions, and what's the story behind this? Was this a Kickstarter or?
This was actually purchased off Amazon. It was a big deal, like as far as the price. I know when it came out, it was quite expensive. So when I saw it marked down so much, and we both like Civ games, we play Civ 6 together on our laptops. So it was one that I wanted to try. I heard good things from friends, so I wanted to try it. It's a game that was out previously, a long time ago. I bet it's close to 20 years almost, wow. 15, 20 years it feels like. And I've never tried it, and neither had Vic. So I thought we'd give it a shot. We don't really have a legit Civ game. We have Civ games, but they're not like heavy theme like Hadara. We play Tapestry. This one felt like it was going to be a Civ game, and in that regard, not disappointed at all. It was like a Civ game, the options and all that. So I guess we'll go over things we liked, things we didn't like, and I will start with things I liked. So the actions are good. It's easy to explain, I feel like, for a game like a Civ game. Maybe not as easy to explain these type of games. This one felt easy to explain, especially since we have a little familiarity with Civ games. So I felt like teaching Vic wasn't that difficult. Doing the overview for this video wasn't that difficult.
Yeah.
There's that. So I like the theme of the Civ game. I like the familiarity with it that I already had. Like, okay, this reminds me of Civ 6 in ways here and there. The way you're doing things, the things, it has those callings that, where you want to build around, where do you want to settle. You have objectives all the time. There's a pretty simple rule set there to go through these motions. I like the cheat sheet is awesome. Having that cheat sheet off to the side, this is what it does when you build it, and this is what it costs to build it. And it's pretty universal, a lot of things, that this is what it's going to cost to build that. The wonders look fantastic. I think wonders are really cool to build and something to strive for. It feels very, very Euro-y, gathering resources that you need to spend on these awesome wonders that give you abilities or points or what have you.
Yeah.
What about you? What'd you like?
Yeah, I like the look of the game for sure. I like how civvy it is because it is pretty civvy. Definitely a Civ game, as Nick said. It doesn't miss what it's attempting to be. Like how streamlined it is, that it doesn't have to be complicated. And, if you have played other Civ games like Nick and I did, like Civ 6, for instance, like concepts such as like a settler being removed from the board and being replaced with a new settlement, that makes like sense to you. Things feel natural that way. I like the consistency in building things. A lot of they're not crazy combinations and recipes for making buildings that you have to constantly reach over, grab a card. Oh wait, can I see the index? I don't know what this one is. I need to know what this means. Like the symbols are pretty throughout, and there's not too many. I don't think there's an overload of iconography to like stare at. I think once you get it, you got it. But yeah, I think I like the way the monuments and the wonders look as well. I like that you can influence as an action and maybe not have like a full out combat with somebody, but just sneak in there and start influencing the cities by proximity and things like that. That's neat too.
One thing to keep in mind with this review, it is only a 2-player review. We've only played this at 2 players. We haven't introduced it to other people. So keep that in mind. Maybe it will have different pros and cons for more than 2 players. Just want to throw that out there. So things that are neutral or you don't like, I'll start there with, this is a game that I feel if you own a lot of games and you can't get a lot to the table, this is going to reward a lot more plays than we can offer it, I feel like. Because you're going to want to learn the ins and outs of what tactic to use, what makes sense here, what does what, and you want to learn it better than just looking at all of these things you can possibly do and trying to figure it out on the fly.
Yeah.
This is more than most games that I have played. This is going to reward multiple plays, learning a lot of different ways to approach the game. So in that regard, that is a negative for me because I'm not going to come back to this game very often because we have so many games that we play, so many games that we review. So for my wheelhouse, that's an unfortunate negative. So a lot of text, a lot of things that you have to keep looking back and forth, and trying to figure out, what do I need? What does this do? Then I forgot about this. Like, oh yeah, that does that. I didn't know I needed that before I can do that. Because there is that situation where even in a game like just knowing the prerequisites, it might not click right away. It's like, oh shoot, I did that and I couldn't yet. Like Eclipse, we just played Eclipse. That has that a little bit too. I didn't know I couldn't do that yet.
Waste your time.
I needed that tech.
Get rid of your hull and then wait for another hull to show up and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you feel like you're you just lose track of like, oh, I can't do that. We just played a game and then thinking about your past game that you could do that. Now I didn't do that tech. I forgot to do that.
Yeah, that's annoying. I hate discovering that. Oh, I didn't trigger this, and then I could have paid for that, and I would have taken this wonder. Then you can't even undo it by that time.
Yeah. So it has that, and it's gonna honestly, like I said, it rewards multiple plays. So if this is a game that's gonna be in your collection and you feel like you're gonna come back to it time and time again, I do think this is a game that you can easily purchase when it's on discount.
Yeah.
And it has been pretty frequently. I've seen if you're worried about that at all, if you have reservations, you have a big collection, maybe stand off, try it first, and see how you feel, how comfortable you get with the game before you go out and purchase it.
Yeah, with so many factions, which I was going to say is a pro for me. I like how many there are. It's not just like 3 or 4. There's a good number of different civilizations you can try out as. But
in this edition.
Yeah, in this Monumental edition. However, I didn't use any of my special, but I felt like I didn't use my leader to their fullest extent. I didn't maximize, and as Nick said, I totally agree. Like, if you nailed down how to play that tribe or that civ, and you got familiar with it the way we did with like Civ 6 and stuff, I can see that. And to your point about automation or wishing there was some way of simplifying or remembering things, that's, I guess, why some of these games are best implemented as video games rather than board games. But I do applaud the effort. I think a negative for me as well was just the relentlessness of some of these attacks that would happen. Now, I was able to overcome it, but I don't know.
The Barbarians at the beginning?
Yeah, they got me
if
good.
They come early, yeah.
But that's a whiner comment. That's not really reflective of the game. I do agree with Nick. I don't see us playing it as much just based on our game collection. But I think that if it was one of 10 or 20 games that you had, I think you'd probably play it a lot.
We would.
Yeah.
We would come back to it a lot. Fatal flaw for me. So this one, for me, it still has a fatal flaw of Civ games where it doesn't feel like you're doing enough quick enough for my taste.
Yeah.
Now, Civ players perfectly fine with that. They're going to be used to it. They're not going to have any bones about that. I do. My game style, I don't want to sit there for that long and not have accomplished that much. It goes by. The game takes too long, yet it goes by too quick. So it's not getting enough done to where it's as enjoyable for me. And you get that in Civ games too, where it just takes too long if you play all the way from the ancient era to the modern era. It really bogs down. It's like, man, this has got to get to the point. This doesn't get to the point, unfortunately. It doesn't take a huge amount of time. I'm not saying it's huge, like 10 hours, but it is fairly long, and not a lot is getting done. It feels like at 2 players. That can change at 4, but then it just takes longer. It just takes longer to get what you're trying to do done. So it still has that flaw to me, a flaw for my taste. And I'm not like a hardcore Civ gamer where I can make an exception or feel that it's okay and I understand. I don't. I think a Civ game that got to the point quicker or felt more exciting would be more of my alley. But yeah, that's my taste.
Isn't that just a war game?
A war game? Yeah. I'm not saying it's get to the point in fight.
I know.
Get to the point that can build up things too.
Yeah.
I don't need to fight at all. Okay. I'm a Euro gamer through and through.
He wants to already know how to read and write and have the wheel.
Get to the point. Let's fast forward. I don't want to really live in this game. So yeah.
Fair enough. I like taking my time learning about the wheel, and I like really.
The what? Oh, the wheel.
Yeah, just
take your time.
Yeah, just take my time. See what happens.
I want to time lapse that. Wheel. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't have fatal flaw necessarily, but I can see your point. I do see that. I don't have much negative at all, really, to say, aside from the fact that I don't see this game, like you said, the biggest
more kind
playing it.
And a lot of people will agree with you.
Yeah.
I might be the odd one. I don't know. I think people that will agree with you will speak up that they agree with you. When people will agree with me, will just stay out of it.
Yeah,
it's
and
like,
now
people like that genre,
It will be crazy if your score is higher than mine.
All right, let's do scores.
What's your score?
I want to do first. I'll do mine. I'm going to go 6-7.
Okay.
Okay, is it pretty close to you, probably?
Yeah, I'm 7-2.
Okay.
Yeah, I did a 7.2. So I bring it up a little further than Nick does. Because I don't mind if it takes a little bit to get to the point or get going or feel like you did something really cut. But I can see, having just played a 6-player Eclipse, these long games, I would dread playing it at more than 2.
For my criticism, I felt like I gave it a good score because it was easy for me to teach.
Yeah.
It was easy for us to play it and just go start moving, doing our actions, quick actions. I like that. Even though the game did drag out, it felt like, for at 2 players even, I still like that. It felt like my actions were still quick. I had spots where I had to keep referencing things like that.
Yeah.
But I felt like I was fairly snappy a lot of times when I knew what I was doing. And that felt good. It felt good to jump into a game that is a Civ game. It's a longer game, a heavy-ish game with a lot of things you can do. And it still played like your actions were still pretty quick and it was pretty intuitive, aside from some nitpicky things on the actual board that you had to really pay attention to.
Yeah, and I'll say simply, I really like the tech tree aspect of it. Like, I like building out and choosing your way. What do you want to choose to work on? What do you want to research and add to your civilization? What do you want to focus on? Really like that. I like the cards that you get to play. When you can choose to use somebody's technology and you just play a card out, or you play a card for combat. Like, that's neat. So there's a lot of good in this game. That's why I gave it my score. I can't take it any further for me, just because knowing, number one, he doesn't, we're not going to be able to play it as much, and it's going to take so much time. We'll have to keep looking then for another Civ game. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this overview and review. If you did, please click the thumbs up, and subscribe for more great reviews. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.